Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this episode touches on tender and challenging topics, including grief, depression, and suicide. These conversations can stir up big feelings, and I encourage you to care for yourself as you listen. You always have the choice of how and when to engage. You may pause, step away, or return at other times. And yet, leaning into these conversations can also be profoundly important, because talking openly about what hurts is often the very lifeline that helps us feel less alone and more connected. Please listen in a way that feels right for you, and know that support is available. If you are in the United States and need immediate help, you can dial or text 988 to connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you're outside of the US, please reach out to local crisis services in your area. Hoping these words land, bringing much healing and clarity for you and those you love.
My teacher tells me constantly that information is not transformation. And I am an information gatherer type of girl. But yet the transformation, right? You've got to make the journey from the head to the heart. It's a very short distance to walk, but it takes a lifetime for most of us.
Welcome to Metabolic Matters podcast, where we embark on conversations with thought leaders, disruptors, change agents, and passionate souls. I'm your host, Dr. Nasha Winters. Diagnosed with terminal cancer at 19 years old, my journey led me to become an integrative oncology specialist and champion of metabolic healing. Together, we'll delve into what truly matters to our guests and how you can metabolize that wisdom to transform your own metabolic health. Now let's meet today's guests. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Nasha Winters, and welcome to Metabolic Matters, the podcast where we uncover connections between body, mind, and spirit, and explore the systems, stories, and science that shape how we heal. Today's guest is a living testament to resilience. Dr. Christina Bjorndal is not just a naturopathic doctor. She is a survivor of bipolar disorder type 1, psychosis, and a suicide attempt that left her in a coma. She's also faced and overcome cancer. Through these extraordinary challenges, she's built a life of purpose, compassion, and service, helping so many others break free from limiting thoughts and labels to reclaim their vitality. Her work is rooted in both the science of naturopathic medicine and the deep wisdom of lived experience. And today we'll explore the blueprint she's developed for healing, one that's integrated physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And we'll touch the places most of us keep hidden. This is a conversation about hope, truth, and the courage to start again. As I mentioned, I'm very much looking forward to this heart-exploding opening conversation with Dr. Christina Bjorndal. I always want to add extra syllables to your name, to your beautiful name. But Dr. Chris is what you prefer. And I love that because that also makes you so present and approachable. And so I just want to acknowledge and welcome you. And boy, Hattie, just give us a quick little glimpse of who you are before we dive in together.
Well, thanks for having me. I love you so much, right? Start to cry right at the first sentence. So anyway, who am I? So I'm a naturopathic doctor, human being first, who's walked through a lot of stuff in order to become a naturopathic doctor. And I've written a few books, and I've had cancer and all kinds of fun things. So we'll get into it.
Man, that's a nice little opening. I mean, talk about cracking wide open. You guys can tell already that she does not hold back on any level. And this is why her patients adore her, because she just opens the door wide and invites you right in. So, I think about your story, and I think about, I've heard glimpses of it or just little tidbits of it in all the conferences that you and I have gotten to present at together. It is always like, there's never a dry eye in the room when you speak. There is always just this reverence and presence when you engage from the podium, there is always this ripple, this energy that moves through the audience that leaves us all transformed. And those are with doctors. Like, I just love that that's the environment I get to see you making your ripple into the hearts and souls of those who care for the types of patient you have been. And so I would love for you, when you look back at the most difficult chapter of your life, I don't know what that was. You've got a few options here. Was it the coma, the diagnoses, the cancer? What was the moment that you thought you might never come back?
Yeah, that is it, isn't it? So I think that that moment was when I opened my eyes. Actually, the moment was really when I attempted to take my life for the first time. And I really thought that I was going to hit the winning button, if you will. And I didn't. And when I came out of the coma, I was like even more depressed, right? That I was still here. Because I'm like, are you kidding me? And and now I have kidney failure and I'm on dialysis and I need a kidney transplant? Like, no thanks. No thanks. So yeah, that was the bottom, if you will. And then when you're at the bottom, the truth is you have nowhere to go but up. So I was given this book to read by Marianne Williamson. And there's a quote on surrender, which goes along the lines of surrender is not about breaking out of anything. It's a gentle melting into who you really are. And all we need is one sincere, surrendered moment where love matters more than anything and nothing else matters. And so I'm reading this, and I'm in my hospital bed in the ICU and I'm thinking, love, what is that? So that's kind of been the journey since 1994 or even earlier, obviously, than that, since birth, is how do I figure out how to love and accept myself? Yeah.
Wow. And that just like leads into, like, everyone's sitting on the edge of their seat right now. Was there a single choice, insight, whisper from your own heart, moment that pulled you from that darkest, deepest hole into actually moving beyond even just surviving, but actually truly living again? And what role did love play in that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it was just all these mini moments, and every breath you take is a loving act. And every choice you make is a loving act or not, right? So it's this journey, we're all on a journey. And it wasn't like I opened my eyes, read that book and life was grand. Absolutely. It was not, full disclosure. There was 2 more suicide attempts after that and 6 psychotic events and lots of pain and lots of suffering to, get the lessons that I think one of the lessons that I've come here to learn from a spiritual perspective is what I've already mentioned is this concept of what is love, right? And how do I love not only myself, but others and let it in too, right? It's an act, right? It's a verb. Yeah. So, I think but the one thing really was being open and realizing that, okay, that game plan didn't work the first time. Apparently I lived. So there you go. And so the biggest choice, so I think that really moved the needle was making the decision to see a naturopathic doctor.
Oh, I got chills. Well, it's funny because here you are sitting across from me looking stunning. As I mentioned already, how you present and show up on stage, you're amazing. The book that I've read of yours, I still have to devour the others, but Beyond the Label is so, gosh, this will be the book that other people will wake up to out of a coma. Yeah, exactly. And read. This will be the words they lean into because of your experience. But what I think is really interesting is people are only going to see the after, right? They're going to just see like, oh, here we are. Like they do that with me all the time. Oh, 34 years out from a terminal. And here you are. Like there's a 0 to 60 point. But what they don't see, they don't see the truth from the messy, unfiltered middle that no one will ever like live through with you. So talk to me about, like how do you show up now for people who go, but look at you, this could never be me having this experience. I could never survive that or what have you. But it's exactly those, I love that, those little micro moments or those messy middles that was not a single event that just trajected you to this moment. There were tons of probably non-circuitous routes and
oh yes.
Talk about that process and how that's even woven into the healing tools and modalities and methodology that you use with your clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most important thing that I share with people is that healing is possible. As long as you're breathing, right? There's this opportunity. It's an opportunity. You have a chance, right? Life is living with you and breathing you. So, however, it's important to mention that, and I think this is interesting that you've asked it this way, because I recently have a patient I'm working with who had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and has had some psychotic events, and is currently in a state of mania, and I'm working with this individual, and he's saying to me, like, why is this happening? And also, like, you're healed. Why can't I be? And I wanted to say to him, and I didn't, but I will say to him, my journey, this has been over 40 years. This has been a process, and you're on the road. This blip that's happening in your life, whether you're listening now and you're depressed or you're anxious or you're in the hospital, you're getting chemo, whatever it is, this is not your entire life right now. This is just a blip. And it's a bump in the road, maybe, but it's a pothole you're in. Where the gutter, it doesn't matter where you are, you can get out of it. You can get out of it. So the framework and the overview is to really understand that there's these 4 aspects to you: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And the Western system, one of my frustrations with it is just emphasizing the physical level only, right? And hey, that's where I started too, physical level. However, if you don't look at the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects, then I think you're missing 75% of the puzzle here.
Holy cow. Well, and you even go further to say if you ignore any one of the 4 sort of pillars, if you will, you're going to fall short. So you're talking like what we mostly focus on is just this one thing and ignore the other 3. But let's say you really wholeheartedly focus on 3 and ignore 1, you're still going to have a vulnerability.
Yeah, perhaps.
Like, can you even think of a time when you thought of those clients of yours that have said, but I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything right. I'm addressing my physical. I'm addressing my emotional. I'm addressing, what example have you seen where even one of those pillars being ignored could cause some blips, some potholes?
Well, we hear that all the time, right? I'm doing everything. And the thing is, I'm sorry to say, you're not. You're not. Because if you were doing everything, you would be healed. And so the fact that you're sitting across from me telling me that you've tried everything and you're still not better tells me you haven't turned over all the rocks yet. You haven't looked under every one of those rocks. And I talk about in Beyond the Label, the 10 steps. So you and I both know that on the physical level alone, there is so much to dissect, and you can take yourself so far just working on the metabolic piece, the terrain, the gut microbiome, brain connection, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, eating the perfect diet, exercise, sleeping great. You can do all of that. Check all the boxes. Get rid of the mold. Deal with the candida. Get the genes in place. Deal with your SNPs. And then what?
Mm-hmm.
If you do all that and you're still not feeling it, I don't think you've actually hit all the hammers, all the nails with the hammer.
I love this. It's so funny. We're getting ready to do a revised, updated edition of the book. Yes. And, historically, the 10th drop in the bucket has been that mental emotional. And I'm giving a little teaser away. We're reformulating it to put that up front.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we can get there a hell of a lot faster if we actually rip that Band-Aid off that you so comfortably dive into with your patients. I mean, not every clinician is willing or able to go there. And I'm just curious from your perspective, do you think it takes your own like kind of frank walk through hell to be able to walk alongside your patients in a way that they can trust you and lean into you? Or do you think we could do it even if we've never had those experiences? Like, I'm just curious as a, colleague to colleague, what have you noticed around that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. It's a really great question. I do think that the lived experience that we bring to the conversation with our patients matters. And I believe in one of our fundamental tenets of naturopathic medicine, which is physician heal thyself. And many physicians haven't healed themselves. So you haven't healed yourself as a clinician when you're with another human and you're triggered or you're activated. That is gold for you as a clinician. Because it's actually not about the other person. It's about you and your unhealed wounds. Now that for me was major medicine because I was like, because you know what we're taught to hold the space, let the patient have the microphone. You're asking them the questions. You're paying attention to them. You're listening more than you're speaking. Yet, if you're not paying it, so all eyes are on them, but you actually need to have a little bit of one eye on yourself.
I love this.
And pay attention to your nervous system, what's going on with you while you're engaging with this another human. And it doesn't mean just in the office. I don't mean just in the office here. I mean grocery store, driving. Driving is a great example.
Oh no, I'm in trouble.
I just got this thing for my birthday that says, you can, a little thing it can hang in your car. It says, yeah, I know my driving scares me too.
That's awesome. Wow. That is a powerful statement and one that I'm assuming, I can feel that in my core of, I now can recognize little cracks that could still probably use some glue, or so, let's lay some gold flecks into those cracks, shall we? I love that. I love that idea. And, I am also really curious, how do you show up in such, because the clientele you serve are coming to you in a perceived, deeply shattered way. Now, and perceived is I chose that word specifically because I know, don't ever perceive them as broken.
Never.
Right?
Absolutely.
But, right? I know that. And so they may show up with you. How do you continue to show up for that over and over and not go into the pit with them? What is your practice that allows you to meet them where they are, but not get consumed by their own process?
Yeah. So that's where I lean more on the vertical, the spiritual.
Very cool.
So if we consider a cross or even a plus sign, if a cross is triggering for people, just a plus sign where there's that intersection. So we've got a horizontal plane and a vertical plane. And most people are aligned on the horizontal, i.e., now way to translate that into the body is that we're living from the neck up. And that's the ego. We're living in the ego. And so we're pursuing matters of money and material items, house, car, purse, clothes, brands, all that kind of stuff. So we've all been programmed, especially in North America, to really believe that matters. And I'll tell you a little sidebar. I went after my second suicide attempt. I went on a mission trip actually to Nicaragua. I had never been to Nicaragua. Had I been to Mexico at that point? Yes, I had. Oh goodness. So anyway, I hadn't been to many places, but anyway, so I go to Nicaragua and my goodness, I thought I was there to, guide them. They guided me. And what I saw was that word love. I saw joy. I saw happiness in mud huts. I saw joy and love in ragged clothes and no food. And because they had community and they had connection. And I was blown away. My heart was so full. And I didn't say much, actually. I just let them teach me. And I came back to Canada and I'm like, man, we have got it all wrong. We really got it wrong. So to answer your question, I've leaned more into this spiritual concept and moved to, because I've had to explain, Nasha, I had to come up with some reason, like why am I still here?
Wow. Ooh.
Right. I'm an overachiever.
Yes, I do. In a good way. And so, for the rest of us, but I'm sure it has its harm to you at times.
Well, right. Yes. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's been a blessing and also a curse. But one of the things is in this realm of attempting to take my life, again, why am I still here? And so I had to I had to answer that question for myself. And the only answer I found was in a book two books, one for adults called Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, and a children's book, which is really lovely, called Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh, that explains this concept of soul contracts. Now, this isn't something that is easy to impart to people because depending on where people are at in their journey, but it's helped me explain the unexplainable, like, why am I still here and that guy got to go, So we want to trust in this concept that there's something bigger than just this, material stuff that we see. And that's where I really lean. And so when I'm with a patient, I don't take it on or take them on or get absorbed into the pit with them because I really feel that I am just walking side by side with them. And the real guide is the universe, love, creator, creatrix, God, Buddha, whatever floats your boat there.
MitoVita isn't another supplement line. It's a cellular medicine in a bottle. Created with Dr. Ahmed El-Saka and myself, each formula is clean, practitioner designed, and terrain approved to support pathways like blood sugar balance, sleep, and mitochondrial function. Explore the line at mitovita.com. Let's get back to your mitochondria. I love it. I can't remember. It was one of my naturopathic teachers, and I'm racking my brain wondering, or trying to remember who it was. But I can remember in one of our classes relatively early on that if we do go down there with them, if we jump into the pit with them, we actually take away their autonomy to do this. Like that hit me really hard that we actually are hindering their healing if we try to get in there with them or fix it or get uber overly empathic to their process actually can disrupt theirs.
Right. Absolutely. Because who's to say what their journey is? We're not the designer here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're not the designer. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the biggest thing that I really want to impart though, too, because it can be challenging. If you've been struggling for a long time, you just want someone to take the pain away. And this is the struggle with the Western way, because that's what we do. We give a pill for the ill. And then we never learn how to metabolize the pain.
Mm.
Right?
Well, you had some zingers today. Really beautiful. And you mentioned it's like everyone's willing to show up first on that physical level. And so you even start there yourself because that is sort of like the safe entryway in, because there's some things that do need to be triaged in that arena. But you also talk about these sort of 3 macro systems from that physical level and their influence on health. Is there like a certain pattern? Like, how do they interact with each other? So tell us about the macro systems, and then how do they tend to interact with one another? And where do you find people get most stuck in those 3?
Okay. Well, so on the physical level, we want to understand that there's these 3 macro systems that, as you just said. So the 3 macro systems are, there can be more, but these are just what I know. The neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters. Most people are familiar with serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, glutamate, acetylcholine, oxytocin. Then you also have your hormones, right? Our neuroendocrine system. So hormones, and then your organs of detoxification. And so that includes your liver, kidneys, colon, lungs, skin, lymphatic system, and this gut-brain relationship that I've mentioned. So it's really your job as a clinician, I think, is to figure out, well, which macro system or systems do I need to address here? Now, I work mostly in mental health. I work a lot with females and hormones as well. But in the mental health area, understand that any one of those macro systems can be the root cause. Now, we tend to focus on neurotransmitters first and foremost. We all do. And that's great. And we can do that. But understand that the key question we always want to be asking is, when did things begin? Now, in some people's cases, in my case, actually, I would argue in all humans' cases, we need to go back even intergenerationally.
Oh, I love this. Yeah.
Right? Because when you were in the womb, when your grandmother was carrying your mother in the womb, you were there as an egg. Right? So intergenerational trauma is a big piece of this puzzle, but I'm totally digressing, but let's bring it back to the hormones. So when did things begin? This is a difficult question though, right, to answer, because often it's like, well, it began when I was 14. Well, then we want to clue into hormones. A lot of hormones are shifting when we're 14, whether we're a male or a female, right? Now, in my case, I go back to the womb because I'm adopted. And there was, the mental emotional state of your mother. And I just mentioned also the grandmother is going to affect you energetically. And so I came into the world wired, already anxious and wired as a baby, I believe, with programming that I wasn't wanted. Right? Any mom that has to make the decision about whether or not to keep a child and then does carry one to term and has to part with that child, I guarantee you, there's going to be a lot more cortisol coursing through her veins.
Yeah, not an easy decision. Yeah.
And that's going to affect the neurostructures of the brain that's developing in that fetus. So anyway, so when did things begin is important. And this is one of my huge pet peeves, as I'm 58 and I'm not yet in menopause, which is a good thing.
Wow.
Yeah, well, hormones are healthy, but here's the thing. A lot of 58-year-old women or women, in their 50s who are going through perimenopause, menopause, the shift, they'll go in with mood swings and this, that, and the other thing. And what do they get prescribed? Neurotransmitter medication. Oh, here, take this SSRI. And that drives me nuts because that's not the right macro system.
Right. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. You're like, really?
So where you start is with your patient and their history, and then what's happened to them. And in my case, it was all three of those macro systems needed to be shored up big time, right?
It sounds like there's never one predominant one that people get stuck in. Their biography is what's going to determine that biology.
That's right. Yes.
Interesting. And so another concept you speak to, and I love this because I feel like it's like giving us a metaphor to work with, which I think is very, very helpful. I'm very visual, and I think a lot of the patients we serve, I think most people are to some degree. But you talk about this idea of building your health house. Mm-hmm. For someone who's not read your book yet, could you give like a brief overview of what you mean by a health house? And maybe just define it first. Then I've got a couple follow-up questions to that.
Yeah, for sure. So recognize that the most important house you're ever going to live in is this body. I really wish our society would invest the same amount of money in their body that they invest in a physical home over their heads.
Yes, that's so good.
Especially in my country. So the health house you're building is the foundational 4 building blocks to relate to that physical level of health. So nutrition, sleep, exercise, and managing stress. Then the next floor is related to managing stress. We need to look at your thoughts and your emotions and how you behave and react in the world. And then the next, and your ability to uphold boundaries. That's the second level. The third level of the health house is looking at the environment. Not only, so from 3 perspectives, epigenetics versus genetics, right? Genes load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger, neuroplasticity, and understanding that there is a lot of chemicals that disrupt us. So we really need to be cleaning up our lives from an environmental perspective. The third, or the next level of we're building a mansion here. The next one is compassion, your ability to be compassionate with yourself. The attic or the top apex of the home is, your health home is the spiritual piece, our alignment with the vertical. Now we've built a house, but we got to plant it on a property that is rooted and grounded and based in love.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think about how many houses, using your metaphor, do not have that foundation. Wow. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy. Yeah. Because you could have this perfect, and I feel like this is what we as clinicians get to see all the time, is it's really easy to fill those homes with lots of beautiful things and rearrange the furniture and do the things to address this floor and this floor and this floor. And everyone's just like, the shiny happiness, yet this foundation doesn't exist. And it just keeps sinking again and again and again, whatever the diagnosis. Wow. I hope that people listening realize that it doesn't matter what your label is. If you do not have this proper built, house and the foundation for it to land, wow. This is so profound, profound. Wow. So for someone whose house, you talked about this lack of foundation, but there's also those, let's go the other direction. Like, what about the people whose houses are just totally burned down to the ground, that they actually have a really beautiful foundation, but the everything else fell apart? I can think of patients and experiences where that happens. Walk me through how that looks differently than the house that's sort of built on built of cards on shifting sands with no foundation, versus a house that actually had a really strong foundation, but it's like burnt to the ground. You kind of alluded to that in your experience in Nicaragua, but could you give maybe an example of both of those cases in your practice?
Well, I think that the example where they have that solid foundation rooted and grounded in love, and they may not have much of a structure in terms of a physical home as we're referring to. I would argue that do you really need it? If you have love, if you have love, you have it all. And the challenge is that one of the questions I ask everybody is, how much do you love yourself?
Ooh, because I think we're all thinking we're going to find it from outside of us.
That's right. Like, so on scale 1 to 10, people who are listening, answer it for yourself. 10 being the best. And I have yet to have somebody say more than 7.
It's hard to hear. Like, even in myself sitting here listening to this, I think my brain immediately goes to like a vacillating between like a 7 and an 8. I feel like I'm pretty up there, but I definitely recognize there's still a few missing foundational pieces. Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. And so I think that, of course, I know I'm not wanting to overlook that if you have lots of love and you may not have enough money to buy organic food or drink filtered water, or you may not have a job, whatever it. And I recognize, that's stressful in our society. But I do feel that we're way off track in our society in terms of what our priorities are.
That's exactly, I think you're hitting on the key here, is how we prioritize things. I'd love for you to go further on that.
Well, what I was going to say, without bursting into tears, is that, so you know that, I'm pretty sure you know that my mom recently passed away. And that was a very difficult journey, so to walk with her. So anyway, my point being that you are all going to die one day. We are all going to die one day. And all of this stuff doesn't matter. Can't take anything with you. Nothing with you. Right? So our society spends all this time accumulating. And I think, that's a disease in and of itself. It really is. And so, but yet we need to be connecting instead of accumulating.
Yeah.
So,
well, it just makes me think about some of the most profound healings I've seen are with people who have virtually nothing, right? Except for this deep love of self. And that seems also to beget more love. Like, it seems to attract more of that energy, because if you're loving yourself, you're drawing in other people who love themselves, right? And and other people who want to be in that sort of flame, like the moth to the flame of that beauty that is emitted when you're walking in that place. It's just, yeah, my brain is like thinking, gosh, we really do need to come back to that foundational step here. And so when you're working with someone like this, who maybe, let's say, a 3 or less on their love tank for themselves, what are the foundational steps that you recommend first in maybe building or even protecting that foundation for that house?
Mm-hmm. So when someone has a low score with respect to loving themselves, then I'm wondering, well, where did they not learn to love themselves? Because this is something that's taught. So then that points me to asking questions about their life in terms of their childhood. And because we generally learn love from our parents. So asking that question, did you feel loved by your parents, your mother and or your father? And if they say yes or no, I don't need the story. A lot of people feel, and this is where clinicians, I think, get stuck because they think that they have to go into the story and they don't know what to do with the story. And, and you don't actually need the story. But what you need to understand is what beliefs has the person formed as a result of the experience. No one's walked their path but them. They know their journey better than anyone. Ultimately, they are the best doctor for themselves. But that gets taken out. Our society, we're not reared to believe that, right? We're reared to believe doctor knows best. So let's go and defer our intuitive skills and let's go ask the doctor what's wrong with us. So we have to understand why they don't love themselves. And that generally points to the perhaps trauma.
The first relationships in particular.
Yes. And for me, then it's my job, I feel, to guide them, to show them that they're worthy. And I know that they know they're worthy because they're sitting in my office.
Oof, that gives me chills. So right there, they're already proving they've done one of the hardest steps, one of the first bricks laid.
Making the call.
Yeah. Wow. That's huge.
What make the call if you didn't love yourself?
Yeah. And I love that you brought up, because I also feel like people sort of downplay trauma or we overplay trauma, right? And so it seems obvious to me that you feel that trauma absolutely, especially unacknowledged trauma, absolutely plays a role in health and disease. How do you explain that to a patient who may be resistant to that idea?
Mm-hmm. So if someone's resistant to that idea, I don't explain it.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. I just note that and I just say, okay, well, we just are where we are. But in order for me to understand how you got to where you are with your health condition, I do need to, we need to look a little bit further than what happened yesterday, right? But whatever happens in the moment. So for example, what does happen, say today, I mentioned earlier in our conversation to pay attention to what's happening with you when you're with a patient. If you're triggered, that means something within you hasn't been healed. So that's gold right there for you and also for your patients. So you can say to them, well, when was the last time, you noticed do you ever get triggered or activated? And if they say, oh yeah, they'll tell you something for sure. Yeah. And then okay, well, because if it's hysterical, it's historical, right?
I want you to say that again. I've heard that term. It's so powerful. Do it again.
So if you're hysterical in the moment, like really lost your cool, it's usually historical. It's not really about the moment. I'll give you a little funny example of this because you've met my son. So one of my spiritual teachers is, I have many that I've turned to, but one of them is Marianne Williamson. And I'm a student of A Course in Miracles. And so I do practice every morning and I have been doing so for over 5 years. So my son was late for a doctor's appointment and I wanted him to be on time at 11 o'clock. And he knew the appointment was at 11:30 and that it's only a 10-minute drive. So in his mind, why does he need to show up at 11? Because I didn't explain to him that I'm doing a patient delivery and I want to run an errand. And of course, I'm trying to do 50 other things in that half an hour, right? So, and I don't need to explain this to you. You just need to be when I tell you. Yeah. So he wasn't there at 11 and I'm an on-time person. So I get in my car and I'm leaving. So we meet in the alley. His friends are pulling up and I'm pulling up and I'm waving my arms. Anyway, so I lose it. Why lose it? And he's, I'm not proud of this moment, but anyway, then I lost my cool. But I know that parents listening, if you're a parent that's never got upset, then wow.
You walk on water.
Yeah. You deserve the Mother Teresa title. But anyway, my son turns. Now, if I had been taught to this way by my mother, well, first of all, I would never have not showed up on time. Anyway, but if my mom had to speak to me the way that I was speaking to my son, I would have been a bucket of bawling. I would have been so upset. I mean, my mom couldn't even look at me sideways and would be so upset. So anyways, but my son, he wasn't really upset at all. And he doesn't have to be. I wasn't trying to upset him. I was just, anyway, then he turns to me and he says this, Mom, what do you think Marianne would say right now about your behavior?
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
I said, she wouldn't be impressed, but she also wouldn't be impressed with you, my friend. Anyway, the point is that was I was hysterical, and it was historical because it really wasn't that big of a deal that my son showed up 3 minutes late. I was and I was in my ego, right? I was really fixed and rigid in my thinking. We have to be on time. And I had added so much to my plate because I wanted to do this, and this. Created a lot of stress for myself. Just let it all go,
Amazing. Hilarious. What a great example. And there's probably people listening to this right now, driving in their own cars, pissed off at their own family members who are I love this because you're right. It's like, why do we turn a molehill into a mountain? And those are such a good reminder of, is it really about the molehill? That's such a simple reminder. One thing you do in your work, and in fact, you and I are going to do an exercise here in a little bit on this, but you teach people how to trust themselves again. Mm-hmm. I mean, to love themselves, to trust themselves, and to tap into their intuition. But I'm really curious because in a highly traumatized individual, trusting intuition can feel very dangerous, especially after a betrayal or trauma. So how do you help people actually get to the truth, get to move the veil back and return to that inner voice?
Yeah. So one piece, just to tag on from to complete what I was saying in that story with my son, it's important then. So what I did is as I processed what was I so activated about? And it's these beliefs that run our operating system that is our mind. So there's many beliefs in that example. Was the belief that I have to be on time, the belief that you show up on time when I ask you, the belief that I'm the mother and you're the son and you do what I tell you. I mean, that's so much in the ego, right? So the way that we navigate with love and learn to trust this inner voice. Now we have these, I'm going to argue 3 voices really. We've got kind of gut feelings, we have the voice of the heart, or which I like to refer to as intuition. And then we have the egoic mind. And none of them are, the ego often gets a bad rap, but the ego is formed to protect us from the pain of the past. And it wants to keep us safe. And so for somebody who's had a lot of trauma, you're right, it can be difficult to navigate and trust because you don't know who's stopped talking. Is it the voice of fear or is it the voice of love? So what I teach people is how to navigate their nervous system and a simple practice, which is called the 5 R's. Essentially, it's, to summarize it, is just that we have to recognize the thought. Now, in Western society, I already mentioned we're living here, right? And we're discounting the body. So what happens is we have a thought that leads to an emotion, which leads to a thought, which leads to emotion, and we can just spiral down into the pit of depression or up into the pit of anxiety. Well, it's probably not an upward pit, but you know what I'm trying to say. Or mania, wherever you're going to go, but you're stuck in this cycle, spin. So we have to interrupt somehow. And you can interrupt from the thought perspective or the emotion perspective. But I start with the thoughts. So recognize what is happening. What's the nature of this? Is it based in the inner critic or the inner cheerleader? Is it kind or critical? Is it pushing you into a sympathetic or stressed state or a parasympathetic or relaxed state, right? So based in ego or love, right? So basically, or ego or I usually say ego or the soul or fear or love. And you can only be in one state at a time, one state at a time, one state at a time. And just a sidebar pet peeve of mine about the health industry, including our own, is everyone's focused on nutrition. And don't get me wrong, absolutely. But the state in which you're in when you're eating the food is more important. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody.
When you are eating mindlessly, when you're eating in duress, when you're rushing, when you're not even like conscious about what you're eating, or why you're choosing it. There's so much to that. And then who you're sharing it with, like who you're with in the company. You're right. It's like, are you standing at the bar, golfing it down? Are you in a drive-through somewhere? Like there's so much that is, it's such a sacred time and a sacred presence. And we really deny ourselves that. And so you're right, where we're so hyper-focused on the what we're eating, we're not looking at the rest of the environment around that.
Exactly. So this nervous system piece is so important, right? And the thoughts are a big driver and the emotions are obviously a big driver. And so we have to interrupt this system somehow. And so recognizing your thoughts, and then when you recognize something that's unhelpful, then let's refrain from following it anymore. Let's just drop that narrative and get into the body. So, I ask people to put right hand on the belly button, left hand on the heart, and relax into the breath. And then the fourth step is repeat that process over and over and over again. The fifth step is to take the thought you recognize and to see if you can rephrase it into something that is supportive and helpful. Now, this was very hard for me because I had a belief that I was stuck in, which is I thought that people were implying that I was intentionally causing my mental health struggles. And so if you had said to me, change your thoughts, change your life, I would have rolled my eyes at you and walked out of the room. But what I didn't know is psychoneuroimmunology, which basically means your thoughts affect your physiology. Your thoughts create neuropeptides. Those neuropeptides affect the hormones that get produced. And guess what? Those hormones that get produced, they affect how you feel. Oof. So we have a chicken and an egg problem here. So you can believe the sad story. Oh, I'm adopted and nobody wanted me and I'm unlovable and I'm a reject. I can believe that story. It's my choice. There's no truth in that choice. There's no truth in those thoughts, actually. And I believe them. And how do you think you're going to feel when you believe those thoughts? Yeah. So that's where it starts. And it takes practice. And the thing is, we go to the gym and we lift those weights to get those nice biceps, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we need to go to spiritual gym.
Yes. I love this. You offered before we started that you would walk us through one of those gym practices. And you did tell me I'd have to be your guinea pig. So I'll be vulnerable and I'll do that with you because I love you and I trust you. And I feel like this is important for other folks to have a glimpse and some tools they can start with today.
It's very simple. And if people are listening, you can do this along with us, or you can, if you're driving, then obviously keep your hands on the wheel.
Good disclaimer.
And circle back later. So we'll just start with putting your hands over your heart and just taking a grounding breath. And it is helpful to close the eyes to get the ego out of the way if you're comfortable with that. So just taking a breath with me. And exhale. I'm just going to ask a couple questions, and all you need to do is repeat the phrase and then the answer. So the first one is, heart, show me where you are.
Heart, show me where you are.
And then just share if there's a word, color, phrase. There can be nothing, no right or wrong.
I just feel this big energy in the upper left part of my body. and actually just over my whole chest.
So we'll just breathe into that. The next one to repeat, heart, will you ever lie to me? Yes or no?
Heart, will you ever lie to me? Yes or no? I got no very strong before you even finished the sentence.
Okay. Heart, have I always followed you? Yes or no?
Heart, have I always followed you? Yes or no? I would definitely say no. I've put you on the back burner many times.
Okay. So we'll ask heart, how do you feel when you hear that I haven't always followed you?
Heart, how do you feel when you hear that I don't always follow you? And I felt that energy completely contract in.
Okay, so we'll just take a breath into that. Heart, why did you contract?
Heart, why did you contract? Oh. I got a little, it's protecting itself. It's hiding.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll just take a breath into that. Heart, can you forgive me for not always following you? Yes or no?
Heart, can you forgive me for not always following you? Yes.
Yes. And heart, is it possible that you are my intuition dwelling inside?
Heart, is it possible that you are my intuition dwelling inside? Very much, yes.
Yes. Perfect. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. So here's the quote to guide you with this is the heart must usher the mind into the zone of revelation.
Ooh.
By Joseph Campbell. So again, most people are leading their lives from here, not from here. And the heart is your guide, right? The heart is there, but the heart doesn't speak loudly, right? The ego speaks first and it speaks loudest. So the way you implement this and the way you build the safety and the trust with it is you ask brown rice or quinoa.
Something safe and gentle, simple.
Nothing's going to go wrong if you make the brown rice over the quinoa. And if it does, well, okay. Then you'll build this muscle so that you will then answer those hits like call your mother. Don't take that drink. Go left.
Yeah.
Because the hits come.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't usually listen. And then we negate them away with the ego because we can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Nasha Winters. And if you've been listening to me for a while, you know my North Star is this. Stop chasing symptoms and start rebuilding health from the ground up. That's why we created Metabolic Regen, an education platform rooted in the Terrain 10, the framework that I've learned to apply to myself and to tens of thousands of patients over 2 decades of clinical practice and cancer care. This isn't about cramming more protocols into your brain. It's about learning to think differently, to see patterns, to read the body's terrain, and to meet patients, or even yourself, where you are. Whether you're a clinician just starting your integrative journey, or a seasoned practitioner ready to bring metabolic and mitochondrial medicine to your toolkit, Metabolic Regen is here to support you. Inside, you will find immersive courses, real case studies, mentorship, and a global network of like-minded colleagues, all of us pulling together to change the story of medicine. If you're ready to be part of that shift, join us at metabolicregen.com. Let's rebuild medicine from the mitochondria out.
Oh, that was so juicy. And so I'm really hoping that people listening went along with us and felt that, because it was very distinct, to get really still and listen to that. All that you've been through and all the folks you support and all that you write about, what do you most want someone to know, like who's new to this journey or feels kind of hopeless, if they've been given a mental health label, or let's say any label that feels like a life sentence? What do you want them to know about that label and the reality of that label?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think we can really get stuck in those labels. And so I want people to know that might explain a constellation of symptoms for you, but that's not who you are. So you are, right? You are a soul having an experience in this body that, I'm called Chris, you're called Nasha. We've both been through lots of challenging diagnoses, to overcome, if you will, to integrate, perhaps, to process and metabolize. And you can do it too. You can do it too.
Do you have a myth about healing that comes to mind, mental or physical, that you wish could be erased forever?
So actually, interesting that you say that. So the last chapter of my book is 23 myths that I was told that they're not true. Things like, so the biggest myth that I want to leave people with is, or that I would like to bust, is that, there's a couple. I mean, one is the way our profession is treated. In this country that I live in anyway, in Canada, very much as a talk about bias and being treated last class, not even second class, last class. So the disrespect is just at another level. And so I would love that to change big time. But the biggest myth, I think, that it relates to the label that I've been given, which is bipolar disorder type 1. The message you're going to get if you're newly diagnosed with that is that you have to take this medication for the rest of your life, and that if you don't, you will struggle. And now, I don't want to perpetuate myths, but I want to say that I'd love the conversation to be more, not so much about this, like it shouldn't be this or that form of medicine, number one. But I wish Western medicine, Western docs would be open to the mind, body, spirit, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of health and healing. And I've had this discussion with some prominent psychiatrists who firmly believe that you can't heal. There's no such thing as curing bipolar disorder. And this one doctor in particular has said that if you will always have the propensity to be unwell. And I thought to myself, really? Like, what about the propensity to always be well? Ooh. Is that not a possibility? Right? But this narrative, though, it's like, honestly, Nasha, I am up against, if you're in the mental health field, you actually had to call out some practitioners as well in a group that I'm in. It's with another well-known medical doctor. And they were referring to people, when you submitted a question, it said, submit your questions about your difficult patients.
Like, even just right then, we've already labeled, we've already shut down seeing them as whole healed beings.
That's right.
We've taken away their opportunity, their possibility of having a different experience.
So I would challenge you as a person listening to this message that we're imparting today, the way you refer to someone in your life, or that and if you're talking about them, that they're difficult and and challenging. And yeah, you know what? That actually has to do with you.
I just needed to hear this today. I actually started my day with a difficult situation that I could feel myself getting wrapped around the axle, right? And after a while, I just came down to this of, well, first of all, I don't have to engage in this. But second of all, why am I so upset? They're not. It's like, and it was very much, I could very in a moment, and hearing you talk, and especially right in this moment, it's making me reflect to go, oh, that's interesting. And I then perpetuated the belief that this person is unable to change this narrative or change this behavior. And it's like, wait a minute, no, I'm going to go back tonight and I'm going to rephrase that in I'll practice my 5 R's and come back to that, because I don't want to ever take that opportunity away from anybody.
Right. Yeah. And I do want to qualify what I said too. Like, here's the thing. In the concept of consciousness, if we think about the realm of consciousness, this energetic field, if you will, there's only one field.
Yeah.
So what are we bringing to it? Are we going to bring, right? Are we bringing love? And one of the principles is in A Course in Miracles, it does ask you to take 100% responsibility. And so anything that, and I struggle, I do, because it's like, but he hurt me. He was, he was a royal, what? He was a, what?
Yeah.
I'm nothing to do with me. But that's not true. So whenever you're pointing the finger at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you. And so it's not, I'm not absolving the other person, because I know there's takes two to tango. Okay. So I'm not saying that it's 100% on you, especially when someone's punching you in the face. I'm not saying that. You should step out of the way.
Right.
If that's the case.
At least be curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted to say, the point I wanted to make there was that if you're struggling in any relationship, ask yourself what you're not bringing.
That's a good one.
Right? So whatever's missing in the relationship, are you bringing that to it?
Yeah.
And I can tell you honestly, when I search my heart, the answer is a lot of times, no, I'm not bringing that to the relationship, actually. I'm not. Well, just before I got on this with you, I did a class with another teacher, and, it was a heart-centered practice. And one of the things that happened during this practice, which I'm going to share with you here now too, is I'm having some difficulty with my relationship with my dad. So I've just mentioned my mom passed away. My parents are divorced. And I was doing this exercise, and the word hatred came in. It's this heart exercise, and then red lettering, hatred. I'm like, oh, I started judging myself for that word, because that's it's my dad. I don't actually hate my dad, but I was feeling hatred towards him. Then we took a breath, softened, did some energy work, and then those letters changed in my mind's eye from hatred to heart, apostrophe D. So those letters,
wow.
We don't have to spell them, because everyone can spell here. But if you take those letters in that word hatred and rearrange them, it spells heart with a D.
Chills. Hearted.
And I was like blown away, because it was like, I'm probably going on too long about this, but there was blood dripping from the hate. It was just angry. It was red. It was awful. And then it morphed into this heart, and it was soft, in the letters. And so here we are. We need to transform the hate in our hearts as best as we can to love. And it's hard, but this is what we're here to do.
It is. Man, and boy, the world needs it now more than ever.
More than ever.
What I love to do next is to do this sort of lightning round. Quick answer. Don't think too much about it. I chose like a couple handfuls that sound interesting, because I want people to know who you are behind you being the doctor, right? I want them to have a little more sense of you. So if you're up, are you up for this game show? Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So you've already alluded to a few in our discussion today, but what is a book you recommend over and over and over and over again?
Mm-hmm. Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, good one. Frankl, good old Frankl. Yeah, Viktor Frankl, good one. Very powerful. Whew, very powerful. All right, next one. One song that carried you through dark times.
That is one song. I have a suicide recovery song. And of course, it's escaping me in this moment in time. My goodness, it's about the sun and the rain. Anyway, that song. And I'm sorry, almost menopausal.
Hey, but the fact that you have one, even that's enough to acknowledge you have like your ballad, your song.
I wish I could play it for you right now, but I'll have to send it to you after.
I love it. We'll add it to the show notes, guys. She'll remember it later. I love it. Well, the good news is that hopefully you don't need to listen to it much anymore.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful recovery song.
I love it. Beautiful. Okay. A person who's profoundly influenced your healing philosophy.
A person who's profoundly influenced my healing philosophy. Well, I'm going to give the credit to two of my teachers, bringing in the yin and the yang here with Marianne Williamson and Gabor Mate.
Oh, yummy. So good. One belief. Oh, by the way, before I do that, you and I get to hang out with your mentor. I've never met him in person. I've been following Gabor for many, many moons. I'm very excited and honored to be part of the IMMH, where you're a presenter, I'm a presenter. Many lights in the field of mental health. I'm super excited and honored to be there. So just a shout out to you, my friend. I'm looking forward to being with you in person on that and being with one of your heroes. So looking forward. Cool. Okay, next one. One belief you've had to completely unlearn.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest one is that I wasn't wanted. Yeah. Like even my cancer wasn't even good enough. Like, who says that? Who even says that their cancer wasn't good enough? Like,
my God, woman.
Are you kidding me? Anyway, sorry to interrupt here.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Last one. If you could put one sentence on a billboard for the whole world to see, what would it say?
Love each other.
And a mic drop. Doc Chris, you are amazing. It's always a pleasure. I've never gotten to sit down with you this deep and dive in. I got to hear you on a stage. We've had lots of conversations, but this was so rich, and I feel so honored that you went there with me and for all of our listeners. Everyone, we're going to have tons of ways to find Dr. Chris, but why don't you tell us right now how they can find you, interact with you? What's the best way to work with you? And please say again the name of your book and all that jazz, and then bring your favorite song to the notes as well.
I'm having a hard time staying in the present moment because I'm like, my goodness, Chris. But that just shows you that actually I've come a long way, because anyway, don't need to rely on that song now, but it is a beautiful song and you'll love it when you hear it. And you'll be like, how did you not know the name of that one? So
too obvious. That happens. Yeah.
So yes. So my website is drbjorndal.com. It's difficult to spell my name. So, but you can find me on Instagram at drchrisbjorndal.com or Chris Bjorndal. And the thing that I'm really excited about this coming up is I'm, for the first time, going to work with clinicians and teach them this approach in a small group format.
Yes. Teach the teachers. Go, girl.
Yeah, so that's something that I have a program and it's there. It's CE approved and et cetera. There's also a program for patients as well. If they're wanting to dive deeper than this, because as my teacher tells me constantly, that information is not transformation. And I am an information gatherer type of girl, but yet the transformation, right? You've got to make the journey from the head to the heart. It's a very short distance to walk, but it takes a lifetime for most of us. So check out the website. If that's of interest to you to want to go deeper with me, then that's how you can.
Oh my gosh, you're extraordinary. And thank you so much for your gracious spirit and your gracious time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. So grateful for this very honest and wise and from the heart conversation. Dr. Bjorndal's story reminds us that healing isn't just about surviving. It's about reclaiming every part of ourselves, even the ones we've been taught to hide. To our listeners, if you've been moved by this conversation, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that there's always a way forward. You'll find links to the show notes to connect with Dr. Christina Bjorndal, explore her work, and begin your own journey of whole person healing. Until next time, remember your body, mind, and spirit are not separate. They are a unified terrain, and tending to all of it is where transformation begins.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of Metabolic Matters. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new exciting episode. Drop your thoughts or questions in the comments, as we'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to check the description below for show notes, guest links, and additional resources to support you in your journey. You can always follow us on Instagram and across social media at Metabolic Matters for updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes content. And a heartfelt thank you to Julie Newmark and Whiskey Flower for the beautiful music that brings this show to life. Until next time, stay empowered, stay curious, and keep metabolizing what matters.